Hey, Cherokee Trail, we are back for chapter 9. I have a guest listener today. There's Cooper. He was leaning on the computer, so hopefully he won't mess up the keys, but he's sort of hanging out listening too. We're on chapter 9. She had, Avon still has not had a great experience at school yet. No one's been particularly like overtly mean to her, but they also haven't been super welcoming either. They just basically sort of ignore her, except for if they, just have a question about her arms, and then, but they're not really including her. So things are not going great. She does have the blog, so she can write her thoughts on that, and then she can talk with her girlfriends from Kansas. But my hope is that things are going to turn around. So, chapter 9. I decided to spend my next lunch period in the library. I knew I could get there two different ways: the busy route, which went right past the cafeteria, and the quiet route, which went the long way around the office. I opted for the longer, quieter route, anything to avoid more stairs. As I rounded the corner, I nearly tripped over a boy sitting on the sidewalk up against the wall. I glanced down. He was eating his lunch all by himself. I looked away and mumbled, "Sorry," as I hurried toward the library. As I walked away, I heard him say softly behind me, "That's okay." I entered the library and set my bag down on a table. I glanced around. I only saw one other student and a couple of librarians. Most kids probably like to use their lunch period to, I don't know, eat lunch and socialize and all that. I felt a pang of loneliness as I scanned a row of books, searching for an exciting adventure story to take me away. I pulled out a couple books with my foot and carried them between my chin and shoulder to the table. I carefully set them down as quietly as I could. I sat down and opened Journey to the Center of the Earth. Back home in Kansas, my great-grandma had got me an e-reader for Christmas. That e-reader was like a revelation for me. No more cumbersome pages. I could just slide my toe effortlessly across the screen to turn the page. But I still liked to pick up paper books from time to time because I didn't want to get out of page-turning practice. After all, I couldn't get all my school books on my e-reader. Before I had finished the first page of my book, I heard a dog barking. I looked around, wondering why a dog would be in the library. I didn't see one anywhere, but I did see a boy watching me from the far side of the room. He looked away when our eyes met. I felt my cheeks grow hot as I turned my attention back to my book. He was probably staring out of curiosity, like everyone else. I heard another bark. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the boy. I glanced that way. I still didn't see any dog. But then the oddest thing happened. The boy barked at me. I didn't know whether to make eye contact with him or look away. I didn't know if something was wrong with him, like he was insane and could attack me at any moment, or if he was making fun of me in some completely bizarre way. I decided to go back to my book. I excelled at ignoring people. I read for a couple of minutes before he barked again. Maybe I wasn't so good at ignoring people after all. I got up from my seat and walked toward him. He stared down at his book as I came closer. When I was finally standing in front of him, he slowly raised his eyes to my face, his lightly freckled cheeks blazing red, much like mine. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, "but are you barking at me?" I hadn't thought the guy's cheeks could get any redder, but they did. Yeah," he stammered. "I'm sorry." "Are you making fun of me?" "Oh, no," he barked again. "I can't help it. I have Tourette's syndrome." I stared at him. "You have what?" "Tourette's syndrome," he repeated. "What's that?" The boy cleared his throat and barked, and then said, Tourette's syndrome is a neurological disorder that causes involuntary motor or oral tics. He tugged on his messy light brown hair in a nervous way. I couldn't believe it. He had just recited his well-rehearsed explanation of his disability like I had done 100 times before. The boy looked from my face down to my non-arm area and exclaimed, "Whoa, you don't have any arms," in a "were you aware of that fact" sort of way. His response to my missing arms was so direct I had to smile. I glanced down and shrieked, causing him to jump a little. "Oh my gosh, I know I was forgetting something today." He sat there expressionless for a little while, like he didn't know what to make of my bad joke. "How did you lose your arms?" he finally asked. I shrugged. I'm always misplacing stuff. Probably left them in the fridge when I got the milk out this morning. Really, they could be anywhere. He grinned and barked, "Were they amputated for some reason?" Usually people pretended they didn't notice my missing arms at all, or acted all weird about it like those girls at lunch yesterday. It was a relief to have someone be so honest about the thoughts in his head. I sat down at the table and leaned in close to him. He did not lean away from me. Instead, he leaned closer. "Have you ever been to the circus?" I asked before beginning my newest story, one I hadn't gotten to try out yet. "No." "Well," I said, "I used to be a trapeze artist. You know what that is, right?" "Don't they, hang from ropes and stuff, like acrobats or something?" "Oh, they do a lot more than that. They do all kinds of tricks, like swinging from the ropes and doing flips in the air before grabbing another rope. They often work in pairs with one person holding the other person and swinging them up in the air or catching them after they've done a flip. Super cool. Stuff like that." "Awesome." He was clearly impressed. "How did you do that with no arms, though? Did you, use your legs? Like a monkey?" "No, I used the arms I used to have." His light hazel eyes grew wide. "Used to have?" I nodded. "Yeah, you see, my partner and I were trying out this new routine. I was going to flip 3 times in the air before he caught me by the arms, but the speed I needed to do such an amazing stunt was just too much. When he caught me..." I closed my eyes and breathed in deeply for drama. "When he caught me, my shoulder sockets came loose and my arms tore right off." He gaped at me. "What?" "It was awful," I went on. "Him just hanging up there holding some arms, blood showering the screaming audience. It was all over the news. Didn't you see it?" We continued staring at each other like we were in a contest to see who would blink first. Finally, he grinned a little, then a lot, and then he started laughing. "You're totally joking," he said, and laughed even louder. I was happy he found my story funny. "Keep it down, Connor," the librarian said as she walked by with a stack of books. "This is still a library." He smiled at the librarian, then barked at her. As she walked away, he turned back to me, still chuckling. "That's Miss Wright. She's super nice. She lets me sit in here during lunch, even though my tics are sometimes really loud. Hardly anyone's in here during lunch, so it's the best part of my day." He tugged at his hair again. "So, is that what you tell everyone, that your arms were torn off in a circus accident?" "No, that's my newest story. I was born like this. The truth is totally boring, so I make up stories for fun. I have lots of them if you'd like to hear." He nodded. "What's your name?" "Avon." "I'm Connor. I would shake your hand, but..." He motioned toward my armless area, blinking his eyes rapidly and barking as he did so. "But you have terrible warts all over your hands," I said. Connor laughed again. "You're funny, Avon." I blushed. My skin is so fair, even the slightest flush to my cheeks makes me bright red. I was probably neon right now. I once Googled excessive blushing and found out there's a terrifying name for my condition: idiopathic craniofacial erythema. I went to school the next day and dramatically announced, "I have idiopathic craniofacial erythema." My teacher called my mom out of concern for my health that evening. Connor blinked rapidly and barked again. "How long have you been going here?" Just started a few days ago, I said. My family and I moved from Kansas. Kansas, Connor repeated. Ever see any tornadoes? Sure, we had a storm cellar and everything. A lot of people do. Did you ever have to get in it? Oh, yeah, I said. But luckily, our house never got destroyed or anything. I thought you were going to tell me some crazy story about your house getting swirled up in a tornado with you in it or something, he said. No, I just tell stories like that about my arm. Though, come to think of it, losing my arms in a tornado will be a pretty good story. I can see how a tornado could suck them right up. I pondered this for a moment. I'll have to think of one later. Cool, I can't wait to hear it, he said. I'd love to see a tornado. Connor jerked his head and barked again. So, why'd you move here anyway? My parents run a place called Stagecoach Pass. We actually live there, if you can believe that. That's so cool, Connor said. Not really. No, it is. I live in an apartment really close to it. My parents took me once, but I haven't been in a long time. Well, you're not missing anything, I said, so don't worry. Do they still do gunfights? Yes. And camel rides? Yes. And gold? Yes. Cool, Connor said. You should stop over sometime, I told him. Since you haven't been there in a while and you live so close, I can even get you a free ice cream cone. He looked uncomfortable at the invitation. Maybe. I don't really like to go out a lot. Oh, okay. I watched him as he continued to blink his eyes rapidly. So, all these things you do, I said, like the barks and the eyes and the jerks and all that, that's from your Tourette's. Yeah, it really sucks. You can't just, hold it in, like a yawn? Connor nodded. I can for a little while. I've tried before to act normal just at school and hold in all my tics. It hurts, though. It's really, really hard to hold them in like that. And then when I'd get home, it'd be a tic explosion like you can't imagine. It really upset my mom, and I would be so exhausted from holding them in all day and then letting them out all night that I couldn't even do my homework or anything. So I don't try to hold them in anymore. Can you take medicine for it or anything like that? Connor shook his head. I tried some medication and it didn't help. It made it worse, actually, and it made me super tired all the time. I could barely get out of bed. Isn't there anything else you can do? Sort of, Connor said. Before my parents got divorced last year, I was seeing a therapist, but my mom's too busy working now, so I don't go anymore. I frowned. How do the other kids treat you? Okay. I guess most everyone is used to it by now. Sometimes I get made fun of. I'll hear kids barking in the hallway or wherever, and some days when the tics are extra bad, I hear some of them laughing. One time I heard a couple of kids giggling behind me in class, and when I turned around, they were mimicking me, jerking their heads. I cringed. That's terrible. Connor shrugged. I think some of them assume I do it for attention, but I don't care. Most people I meet think I'm doing it deliberately at first. I bit the inside of my cheek. I had thought that too. Do you have any friends? I asked. Connor shrugged again. I've only been here a year. My mom and I moved to the apartment near Stagecoach Pass after we sold our house, so I had to change schools. It's been kind of rough coming to a new school and all that. I guess that's why I spend a lot of time in the library. What about you? I haven't made any friends here, but I had a lot of friends back home in Kansas. I guess because we all grew up together, no one thought I was weird or anything. They were just used to it. Connor nodded. Yeah, I had a couple friends in my old school who didn't get annoyed by my tics, but I don't really see them anymore now that we live so far apart. Connor rolled his eyes and blinked rapidly. Has anyone been mean to you? No, not really. They just act weird around me, like they don't know whether to look or not, to ask about it or not. But no one has talked to me like I'm an actual person. Connor nodded in understanding. People act like that around me too, except I think it's that they don't know whether to laugh or not. Like they're not sure if they're being mean or whatever. Some people just ignore it, like it's not even happening. I guess I like that the best. Some people do that to me too, but in my case, it's kind of ridiculous, I said. Connor jerked his head and laughed. Yeah, like my armlessness is something that could slip by someone. I mean, how unobservant do you have to be to not notice that someone doesn't have arms? I'm pretty unobservant, and it only took me about a minute. My point exactly. The bell rang for class to start, and my happy mood sank. I wanted to stay here with Connor. It was nice to have someone to talk to besides my parents. I guess I better go get my bag. I stood up from the table and looked down at him. I'm glad I stopped in here today. Connor looked back up at me and smiled. Me too. Oh my goodness. Doesn't that just make your heart sort of warm? So, she had a cruddy day. But, she decided to do something different, to try something different. And sometimes if we try something different, the outcome will be different. So the last 2 times in the story, when she ate lunch in the story, she sat under that tree by herself. She did the same thing, but nothing changed. And then she went and she ate in the bathroom. Nothing changed, right? She didn't meet anybody. Nobody came over to be friends with her. So at the beginning of this chapter, she decides, I'm not eating in the bathroom again. I'm going to go into the library and eat there. And what was sort of cool about that was we used to have a lunch bunch in the library for a couple years. And on Fridays, we would have a different group of kids come in and eat. And they were like library helpers. And so I was thinking maybe we should start that up again, because sometimes it's just fun to get out in the noisy cafeteria, even when you do have lots of friends to eat with, and to just do something different. But the nice thing is the librarian doesn't mind that they're eating in there. And it was just perfect, because she could go in there and find a book maybe to sit and read while she was eating. But she hears this barking. And she's like, okay, where is this dog? So, was it a dog? No, it was a boy named Connor. And he also has something that makes him a little bit different from other kids. Do you remember what it was called? Yeah, it was called Tourette's syndrome. And it can have a variety of different symptoms, but a lot of times it does mean that they'll just make noises without meaning to or trying to, and it's just part of the the syndrome they're born with. Sort of like when you have asthma and you have a hard time breathing, or you have diabetes and you need to watch your sugar. It's just one of those things, but unfortunately it has where you make these different noises sometimes, and that can be embarrassing, right? I mean, like, how it is when you somebody toots and everybody is like, ew. Well, that would be like what it would be like every time like Connor barks. People would be like, oh, what are you doing? And that would get like old really fast. So the thing we notice different is that she is trying to ignore him, right? She hears this noise. She's like, finally, she's thinking to herself, it's got to be that boy. He's barking at me. Why is he barking at me? And she decides to try to ignore him, but after a couple minutes, she can't. So the different thing she does is she decides to get up and go and talk with him. But she doesn't just ask him, like, if it's going to happen to her, if it's going to affect her, which is what the girls did to her. What she does is she asks him about what is happening. And then when he says it's Tourette's syndrome, she asks, well, what is that? And she's actually interested in him, not just interested in whether or not she's going to get it from him like the girls, but her reaction is different. She's interested in him. And, as it goes along the conversation, she introduces herself. She tells him her name, and then he says his name. So they're building a relationship. She's not just trying to find out what's wrong with him and then walk away. And, she's interested. And you know what? They said right here, and this is what I thought was interesting. Usually people pretended they didn't notice my missing arms or at all or acted all weird about it like those girls at lunch yesterday. It was a relief. It made her feel better to have someone be so honest about the thoughts in his head. He wasn't mean about it. He just asked, how did you lose your arms? Just matter of factly, like she said, if you saw someone with no arms, would you notice? Yes, you would notice. And the person without the arms knows you notice. So pretending that you don't notice, it's almost like acting like they don't matter, that they're not worthy of you even asking them about it. And, Avon's fine. She jokes with it. What'd you think of her story? Yeah, about the acrobatic. Yeah, and being in the circus. Yeah, that was great. So that was fun, even though she could come up with another one. So if you were Avon and now you had the idea of losing your arms in a tornado in Kansas, like Connor suggested, what story could you come up with? Think about it. Maybe write it down. See if you can use also some of those descriptive phrases that would paint a word picture in your reader's head. Not just saying, oh, the tornado ripped my arms off when it ripped the house. Done. Sort of embellish it. Give it some details. Something that'll stick in the reader's mind. Yeah, so this is sort of good. Granted, Connor has some things that he's having to deal with, but so does Avon. And she's having a nice conversation. Can you imagine how it made her feel? When she goes home tonight to talk to mom and dad, what do you think? How is her conversation going to be different with mom and dad after school than it has been the rest of the days? Yeah, I think she's going to be happier. She's going to have something to talk about because she had this conversation. She met somebody and he's nice. He's funny. And her mom won't be looking in her bag going, you didn't eat your lunch again. Because she did. She had a comfortable, happy lunch. So, things are looking up. Do you think they'll become friends? Do you think he'll go to the Stagecoach Pass? Yeah, maybe. To the amusement park? Do you think he'll get the right kind of ice cream? Probably not. Because remember, the ice cream shop man, he does not get the order right. Yeah. But, so looking forward to see what's going to happen in chapter 10. But I feel a little heartwarmed. Hope you do too. Okay. See you later.